Introduction: Striking straight into consciousness. Have you ever asked yourself, what if one day you woke up and realized you no longer needed any form of recognition to feel worthy? No likes, no compliments, no admiring glances from anyone. Just you with yourself. In a world where everyone is chasing the light, do you have the courage to remain in the dark, just to listen to the voice within? It may sound simple, but in truth, it is one of the hardest things to do. Because from a very young age, we are taught how to become somebody in the eyes of others, rather than becoming ourselves in our own eyes. We learn how to smile at the right time, respond acceptably, and appear fine even when we're breaking inside. We learn how to live for approval, but we are rarely taught how to live for respect. Respect for ourselves. It is not arrogance. It is the foundation of inner freedom. The very thing Stoic philosophers have pursued for over 2,000 years. The Stoics did not live to please anyone. They did not chase agreement, did not bow to praise, and were not paralyzed by criticism. They lived by a standard only they knew, a standard built upon reason, discipline, and dignity. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once wrote, "Your worth is not determined by what others say. It comes from what you choose to do, even when no one is watching." In an era where social media turns attention into a currency of value, this idea may sound like a paradox, but it is that very paradox that becomes the doorway to true freedom. Because you cannot live in peace if you need someone else's permission to be yourself. And you cannot have self-respect if you keep living through the eyes of others and forgetting your own. This is what Stoicism continually reminds us. The greatest freedom is not the absence of external limitations, but the absence of internal bondage. From the whispers in your mind, do they think I'm weird? Am I good enough? What if they don't like me? All those questions are chains. And the irony is, you can have everything: money, fame, status, and still feel empty. Because no one out there can fill the void you yourself have abandoned, the recognition from within. You can hide from the world, but you cannot hide from yourself. And if every day you are still acting as someone you are not, then you are losing the most precious thing, the freedom to be who you are. In this journey, we will walk through practical yet profound lessons to gradually build a self as solid as stone, not to challenge the world, but to remain unmoved by it. Because true freedom does not lie in how many people support you, but in whether you dare to live your truth, even when you're alone. Are you ready? Lesson 1. Unseen yet still worthy. A real-life situation that touches the heart. Have you ever adjusted your voice to sound cuter? Have you ever hesitated to laugh loudly for fear of seeming improper? Have you ever said, "I like that too," even though you didn't really? Chances are you've done all of those, not because you're weak, but because you wanted to be accepted. You learned to speak moderately, choose your words carefully, and behave reasonably so as not to upset anyone. You tried to be gentle, pleasant, safe, and over time you slowly became the version that others found comfortable, but no longer yourself. We grow up in a society that teaches, if everyone likes you, you will be happy. But the truth is, the more people you try to please, the emptier you feel. Because in your attempt to be seen by someone, you're losing the only person who truly needs to see you, yourself. Stoic reflection, quotation. The Stoics understood this very well thousands of years ago. They did not wear armor to be admired. They built inner strength so they would not collapse. Marcus Aurelius, Rome's greatest emperor and also its quiet philosopher, once wrote, "Your worth does not lie in the eyes of others. It lies in how you conduct yourself, even when no one is watching." To the Stoics, A right action does not need to be witnessed to hold meaning. They did not live to be praised. They lived to not betray themselves. In an age where every gaze can become a distorted mirror, the ability to live with integrity, even when no one acknowledges it, is the highest expression of self-respect. Because true respect never comes from the outside. It arises in the moment you refuse to lower your principles just to be liked. Third lesson summary plus path to action. And one day you'll realize all the praise, all the likes, all the applause never truly made you stronger. What quietly built your inner foundation were those moments when you chose the right thing, even when no one saw. That is when you begin to know you have worth, even when no one is watching. So today, write this down. Not for anyone else to see, but for you to see yourself more clearly. I don't need to be recognized to have value. I just need to live true to my values. Just one line. But if you repeat it every day, it will become the foundation for a self that cannot be shaken. Would you like to continue to lesson 2? I'm ready to begin. Lesson 2, tuning the voice within one, a real-life situation that touches the heart. You once made a small mistake, a decision that wasn't quite thought through, a slip of the tongue that led to a misunderstanding, or maybe you were simply late on a deadline. And then you blamed yourself as if you had ruined the entire world. That was so stupid. I always mess things up. I really am a failure. No one was there to judge you. No one scolded or condemned you. Yet you still felt yourself collapse because a voice inside kept repeating that you weren't enough, and you believed it. You didn't break because of the mistake. You broke because of that voice, the one that whispers every day, seeping into every quiet moment. I deserve that. No one could love someone like me. I'll never change. What exhausts you isn't the world outside. It's how you treat yourself when no one is looking. Second Stoic reflection, quotation. The Stoics believed, no one can harm us as deeply as we harm ourselves if we do not guard our minds. Epictetus taught his students, we are not disturbed by what happens, but by our thoughts about what happens. Mistakes do not ruin you. What damages you is how you speak to yourself after the mistake. Stoics do not deny emotion. They simply refuse to let emotion become a whip they turn against themselves. They do not ignore pain. They just learn to speak to it with respect. You can fail, but you do not have to shame yourself for it. Imagine for a moment, if a child beside you fell while learning to walk, what would you say? Why are you so stupid? Or, it's okay. Next time you'll do better. You would choose the second. But why? When that child is you, do you choose the first? Third lesson, summary plus path to action. The voice inside you doesn't have to be a judge. It can be a guide. You may stumble, but don't weigh your steps down with criticism. Instead, learn to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend. I'm not perfect, but I'm learning. I didn't get it right yet, but I'm improving. I'm not a failure. I'm simply on the long road of growth. Today, begin tuning your inner voice by writing this down. I choose to speak to myself with respect and compassion. Repeat that every time you fall, because you cannot control every failure in life, but you can always choose how you speak to yourself. Lesson 3, stop comparing, start living one. A real-life situation that touches the heart. You check your phone in the morning and see someone just earned their international master's degree. Someone else just bought a house. Someone else is traveling around the world. And you are still wrestling with bills, deadlines, and unanswered questions inside your heart. You close your phone, sigh, and feel yourself shrink a little. No one told you that you weren't enough, but somehow you feel insufficient, not good enough, not fast enough, not special enough. You begin to doubt your own path and ask yourself, Am I living too slowly? We forget something important. Others are showcasing their brightest moments, edited, filtered, carefully chosen, while you are living real life with sweat, with chaos, with exhausting days you never post. You're not behind. You're just comparing someone else's feature film with your own unfinished draft. Second Stoic reflection, Sean quotation. Stoicism teaches, envy is ignorance. Imitation is suicide. Ralph Waldo Emerson. The Stoics understood each person is born with a different timeline. You cannot compare a rose blooming in spring with a pine tree enduring winter. No one was born to run the same race because each journey is uniquely made. Epictetus said, if you want peace, don't try to become someone else. Be yourself, fully. Every time you look left, look right, and then shrink yourself, you're turning away from the one path made only for you. Comparison doesn't make you better. It only makes you lose yourself. Third lesson, summary, plus path to action. You don't need to know how far others are going because you are moving in your own direction. You don't need to be like someone. You just need to become yourself, but deeper, steadier. And the more you stop comparing, the more you start living. Living with presence, with gratitude, with respect for every small step you've taken. Today, write down one sentence to begin this new journey. I stop comparing. I am living true to my own path because you're not here to race. You're here to grow at your own rhythm. Lesson 4. Learning to say no without feeling guilty. 1. A real-life situation that touches the heart. Have you ever been in this situation? Someone texts you at 10 p.m., urgently needing your help. You've just come through a long, draining day. Your mind tangled, your body exhausted, but you still reply, okay, I'll do it. Because you don't want to let them down, because you're afraid of being seen as unhelpful, because you believe that saying no is selfish. You call it kindness, but deep down, you're depleted. You keep saying yes, not because you have energy, but because you don't dare to say no. And little by little, you begin to disappear from your own life. People get used to you always being available. They assume you'll always say yes, and you start to feel smaller, invisible, and drained. You think you're being kind, but really, you're quietly dying from your own inability to set limits. Second Stoic reflection, chess quotation. The Stoics never equated kindness with surrendering boundaries. They understood a person who doesn't know how to say no will soon become a faint shadow in their own life. Epictetus once said, we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control what we allow. Saying no is not a rejection of kindness. It is the protection of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They are doors, so you can step into your own life without losing yourself in someone else's. A truly kind person knows when to stop, so they don't hurt themselves in the name of morality. And sometimes the kindest act is knowing how to say no at the right moment. Third lesson summary plus path to action. If you always say yes, then your no loses its meaning. If you live only to please everyone else, you will lose the inner voice silently crying out for help. Today, practice saying one very short but incredibly powerful one word. No. No to what drains you. No to requests that demand too much self-sacrifice. No. Not because you're cold, but because you know how to preserve your own vitality. Write down this sentence to remember. I say no when needed, not to oppose anyone, but to stand by myself. You were not born to be a doormat for others to walk on. You were born to live fully, with respect from others and from within. Lesson 5. Live true to the person you promised to become one. A real-life situation that touches the heart. You've sat in the middle of the night after a bad day and promised yourself, tomorrow I'll change. You've written out a beautiful plan, promised to be kinder, more decisive, more disciplined. You've looked in the mirror and thought, I can't keep living like this. But then, the next morning, you repeated the same old pattern. You delayed again. You gave in again. You quietly, but consistently broke your own promise. No one saw you break it. No one blamed you. Only one person knew, you. And that person slowly began to lose trust, not in the world, but in themselves. Second Stoic reflection, just quotation. The Stoics regarded honesty with oneself as among the most sacred virtues. You don't need to make an oath to the world. You just need not turn your back on the values you once recognized. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, when your actions don't align with your values, you live with a quiet emptiness and regret. That regret isn't loud. It's the vague exhaustion you can't explain. It's a sense of something missing, even when everything seems in place. It's when you know you're not exactly wrong, but not exactly right either. Not ashamed, but not proud. The Stoics didn't chase an ideal image in the eyes of others. They pursued inner consistency because they knew you cannot have self-respect if you cannot trust yourself to keep your word. Self-respect doesn't come from words, but from silent, repeated actions. From the times you didn't quit, even when no one was watching. From the times you kept a small promise, even when no one reminded you. Third lesson, summary plus path to action. Trust in yourself doesn't come from how talented you are. It comes from becoming the person you promised to be. Not perfect, but honest. Not quick, but consistent. Not glorious, but enduring. Today, don't make a grand promise. Just ask yourself, will this next action bring me closer to or further from the person I want to become? If it takes you further, don't do it. If it brings you closer, begin, even if it's small. Write down this sentence as a new beginning. I commit to living true to the person I once promised to become. Because self-trust doesn't just appear, it is built from every small decision you choose each day. Lesson 6, turning flaws into foundation. 1. A real-life situation that touches the heart. You once made a mistake, a wrong choice, a moment of weakness, a wound from the past that you still keep hidden. You try to cover it up as if anyone found out, they'd turn away, they'd judge you, they'd see you differently. So each time someone gets too close, you pull back. Each time an opportunity to go further arises, you hesitate. Not because you lack ability, but because deep down, you still believe, I'm not good enough. You see your flaw as a crack, something that ruins the whole of who you are. You carry that shame for years, like wearing an invisible backpack. The farther you go, the heavier it feels. The longer you live, the more it weighs you down. Lesson 8. Walk through fear. Find yourself again. 1. A real-life situation that touches the heart. Have you ever wanted to do something, but then backed away? A job you deeply desired, but told yourself, I'm not good enough yet. A relationship you wanted to rekindle, but thought, they probably won't accept me. A dream you've carried for years, writing a book, starting a channel, changing your living environment, but said to yourself, not the right time, not ready yet. Let's wait a little longer. At first you thought you were being cautious, but month after month you remained at the starting line, not because you lacked ability, but because fear was still sitting there, not screaming, not aggressive, just whispering, wait a little more. You listened and did nothing. But the most frightening part is, fear doesn't stay still. Every time you delay, it grows. Every time you step back, it roots deeper. You think you're avoiding risk, but in truth, you're slowly losing the chance to meet the larger version of yourself. Second Stoic reflection, quotation. The Stoics didn't see fear as an enemy. They saw it as a sign that something is worth stepping toward. Horace once wrote, "He who has begun is already halfway there." Just begin. No need to wait until all the worries go away. No need to wait until you're perfectly ready. Just act, even if you're shaking, even if you're slow, even if you're uncertain. That alone is enough to take back the steering wheel from fear. The Stoics understood. Fear always exists, but you can become bigger than it. You don't need to eliminate fear. You only need to stop feeding it with delay. Third lesson summary plus path to action. Fear will remain if you keep stepping back, but every step you dare to take, no matter how small, makes it shrink. And slowly, you realize you don't need to stop being afraid to act. You just need to act, and fear will step aside on its own. Today, stop waiting. Pick one thing you've been postponing and take the first small step. You don't need to finish. You only need to start. Write down this commitment to yourself. I act even while afraid. I choose to move toward who I'm meant to be. Because every time you choose courage, you're not just getting closer to your goal. You're getting closer to your truest self. Lesson 9. Master your finances. Master your emotions. 1. A real-life situation that touches the heart. Have you ever walked into a store or browsed an online shop? Not because you needed anything, but because you just had a bad day. You added a few items to your cart, hit purchase, and suddenly felt a little better. A new pair of shoes to mask the feeling of failure. An expensive shirt to offset the sting of criticism. A shiny new gadget as if to tell yourself, at least I can still afford something. You didn't spend because you needed. You spent because you didn't know how to face the emotions inside you. But then, days later, the emptiness returns, along with a long receipt and a mind even more scattered than before. Second Stoic reflection, quotation. The Stoics clearly understood. The way you spend money reflects the way you're living inside. Seneca once said, poverty is not having too little. It's wanting too much. This poverty isn't in your wallet. It's in your heart, where something always feels missing, never enough, always chasing the next thing to fill the now. Stoicism doesn't reject material enjoyment. It only warns, when emotions control your wallet, you are no longer the consumer, you become the one consumed. Spending to avoid sadness doesn't make you stronger. It slowly takes away your ability to comfort yourself without reaching for something external. And then you stop feeling in control. You feel dependent on the item, on the sale, on the feeling of buying something new to feel valuable again. But self-respect doesn't lie in what you own. It lies in your ability to manage impulse, to protect your long-term peace from short-term desire. Third lesson summary plus path to action. Finances aren't just numbers. They're a clear reflection of your mindfulness. When you know how to pause, how to say not necessary, how to resist the urge, you're telling yourself, I'm mature enough not to escape my emotions through material things. Today, try something simple but powerful. Track every expense for the next 7 days. Not to restrict, but to better understand who you are behind each decision. And write this down as a commitment. I manage my money, and not because I have a lot, but because I won't let it define my worth. Because every time you choose with awareness, you're not just saving money, you're saving your inner peace, something no item can buy. Lesson 10. Your body, the temple of your soul. One, a real-life situation that touches the heart. You've stayed up until 2 a.m., finishing a deadline, down 3 cups of coffee just to stay awake. The next morning, you skipped breakfast, rushed out the door with blurry eyes and a spinning head. You patted yourself on the back. It's fine, just a few busy days. But those few days became a routine. You skipped more meals, slept less, breathed faster. You called it effort, yet while you were out there trying to conquer the world, you were betraying the only home that will stay with you for life, your own body. You started feeling exhausted but kept pushing through. The dull back pain, the mental fog, the irritability. You thought they were small things, but your body was crying for help. Not with screams, but with subtle signs, prolonged fatigue, weakened focus, emotions that cracked easily. You believed you were sacrificing for your goals, but in truth, you were sacrificing the foundation of all goals, your health. Second Stoic reflection, quotation. The Stoics understood deeply the connection between body and mind. Seneca once wrote, "The body must be treated with discipline if you wish to have a free mind." Stoic philosophy doesn't encourage indulgence in physical pleasures, but it never disrespects the body, because it knows the body is the foundation for clear reason and steady spirit. You cannot remain calm if you're constantly sleep deprived. You cannot make wise decisions on an empty stomach and a foggy brain. You cannot live with self-respect if you treat yourself like a machine, worn down by overtime hours. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be in perfect health. It only asks you to be awake enough not to quietly destroy yourself. 1. 3. Lesson summary plus path to action. Your body doesn't need you to become someone's ideal. It just needs to be respected like a sacred temple, the place where your soul lives. And you cannot build a career, nurture dreams, or love deeply if that temple is crumbling from neglect. Today, choose one small action to begin caring for your body, not for image, but because you deserve to feel healthy, awake, and at peace. Maybe it's sleeping an hour earlier. Maybe it's eating a nutritious meal, or simply breathing deeply, placing a hand on your chest and saying, "I respect the place I live, this very body." Because self-respect doesn't exist only in your thoughts. It begins with how you care for the place your soul resides each day. Closing, a call to motivation and action. Pause for a minute, not to chase more information, but to return to yourself. You've just walked through 10 lessons, not shortcuts to success or tricks to get rich, but foundational bricks for building a resilient self. One that doesn't crumble at criticism, one that doesn't depend on praise, one that doesn't fall apart after a single misstep. You've spent years trying to be loved, accepted, acknowledged, but maybe not enough time learning to love, accept, and acknowledge yourself. Self-respect isn't automatic. It doesn't come from luck, it doesn't fall from the sky, and no one can hand it to you. It is built day by day, choice by choice, promise by promise that you keep with yourself. You don't need to be better than anyone. You don't need to win every race. You only need to live each day a little closer to the person you know you can become. Take one last look at the lessons you've walked through. The lesson that you don't need to be seen to have value. About the voice inside you, the friend or the enemy every time you fall. About stopping comparison and beginning to truly live. About saying no without guilt. About keeping your word to yourself like a sacred relationship. About turning flaws into a foundation. About discipline as a form of deep self-respect. About courage, walking through fear to rediscover who you are. About managing your finances to manage your emotions. And finally, about caring for your body, the home of your soul. You don't need to do everything at once. Just choose one and begin today, not because someone wants you to get better, not to prove anything, but because you deserve a life you can be proud of. A life where you don't have to pretend, don't have to push, don't have to beg for recognition. You only need to live truthfully and live deeply. Because in the end, what you need most is not a world that understands you, but a you who understands and never gives up on yourself. Write this down right now, not for anyone else to see, just so you remember. I choose to live with self-respect, not to be seen, but because I know I'm worthy. Then choose one action, any action, a no you've been afraid to say, a kind word you offer yourself, a small promise you follow through with, even if no one notices, a nourishing meal, a full night's rest, a quiet breath. Start there, because every time you act from self-respect, your inner world grows steadier. And once the inside is steady, the outside no longer has the power to break you. Self-respect isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose to live, starting today.